Good evening, everyone, and a very warm welcome to this evening's talk by Jane Dillon. And I'm having to do both the technical side and the introductions, so I'm trying to do a bit of multitasking, which you know that men aren't terribly good at multitasking, but we'll give it a go. So it's a great pleasure to have you all here for this Galileo Commission evening with Jane Dillon on Transcending Reductionist Science with Proof, Incontrovertible, Reproducible, Non-Placebo Experimental Proof. Well, that is a strong statement, and I know that Jane will be backing this up because she spent a lot of time working through this with Philip Savage, who you'll hear about. She is sociologist by background, as you'll have read in the background. She's president of Catharsis, and we'll put all this information for you in the chat and in the email follow-up. And we'll also make sure that you can get the recording afterwards as well. So I'm not going to take any more time. I'm going to hand over to Jane, who will take us through her presentation.
Hello, everyone. I'm very happy to meet you all, and thank you, David, for having me on today. I'm going to start with just a little introduction of who I am and how I got here. I was born and raised in Long Island, New York, surrounded by water. 3 months out of every year, I was in it, swimming, sailing, water skiing, in the sun and the sand. I loved school and church, books and music. I wanted to be a teacher. Then in high school, I decided that after college, I would go to Union Theological Seminary in New York City and be a minister. No one told me they didn't have women ministers then. Anyway, instead at 18, I moved to San Francisco to college at San Jose State. San Francisco in the 60s, as you know and may have experienced, was revolutionary in every way. Social, political, psychological, intellectual transformations in every field. I got my BA in sociology and philosophy, interested in social justice, social movements, social change, Eastern philosophy, and power. In 1984, I moved to San Diego, was teaching at a local college when a neighbor came by and gave me a book, The Autobiography of a Yogi by Paramahansa Yogananda. Well, I had avoided gurus, healers, Hare Krishnas, and the New Age in San Francisco all those years. This was something I had never seen before. I read the book nonstop, slowly, and when I finished, I said to myself, this man is either lying or telling the truth, and I'll bet everything I have, including my sanity, that he isn't lying. To me, that meant every word in the book was true. So then I said, I want to know everything there is to know about this. Well, within a year, I was back in school, in graduate school at University of California, San Diego, to get my master's and PhD in sociology. After 13 years of intensive, in-depth ethnographic research all around the country of the US, I completed a 1,000-page dissertation on the 20th century Western yoga movement that became the definitive academic documentation of yoga in the West. I had also practiced the Kriya Yoga techniques for 13 years, which I still do. The title of my dissertation is The Social Significance of a Western Belief in Reincarnation, Qualitative Case Study of the Self-Realization Fellowship. In the last chapter, I was able to use a new sociological methodology that I had designed that allowed me to document and analyze the nature and function of belief in the construction of knowledge systems, and concluded that all knowledge, religious and scientific, feminism, Marxism, any ism, including reductionism, is fundamentally based on belief. In 1997, after teaching sociology at UC San Diego and Whittier College, I applied for a position at the California Institute of Human Science. It was a graduate school and research center that bridges science and spirituality. That's where I met Dr. Philip Savage, the renowned scientist from France who had a private office at the Institute where they were conducting 2 years of research on him, his extraordinary background, and collecting hundreds of unprecedented before and after lab results of the people who came to the Institute. At that time, there were only 3 small pamphlets available in English by Dr. Savage. They were called Transcendental Medicine, Sacrificial Medicine, and Geosomatics. Geo Earth, Somatic Sick. I read those documents several times and realized that this is exactly what I care about most, and decided to be part of this work. I taught sociology at the California Institute, conducted experiments on the effects of Dr. Savage's SDI technology, which I will describe here today. In 1999, along with several medical doctors and research scientists, I organized the new eco-humanitarian organization, Catharsis, Bionostic Unit of Geonoetics. Since then, I am president of Catharsis, direct post-materialist scientific research, train students, and manage our consciousness-expanding holistic health projects, transforming people, animals, groups, and businesses throughout the world. All of this information is on our Catharsis website, psproof.com. So the title of my talk is Transcending Reductionist Science. It started out Extinction, the One Mind and Evil, which I will point out the connection for people to understand. You can see on the slide, the purpose of these experiments is focused to prove for the first time scientifically, once and for all, the existence of a higher power, which many of us on this webinar today know exists. We want to prove it. And we want to prove the list at the bottom of this page, which I will talk about many, many times. So I'm going to, in the interest of time, I'm going to go and introduce Dr. Savage to you very briefly, because all the information on him is on our website. So, how do I go, David? Not going.
You should be able to.
There it is.
Good.
It's hard enough. It's Dr. Savage. He's a PhD in consciousness studies, a scientist, criminologist, paleontologist, former undercover special agent, youngest lieutenant of his generation, and a unique cultural figure from Brittany, France. He comes from the direct matriarchal lineage, mother, grandmother, great-grandmother of ancient Hyperborean Celtic Druid tradition. Dr. Savage is the founder of the advanced science of subliminal distant influentiality. We call it SDI. All the experiments I'm going to present to you today use this technology in one form or another. He's renowned in the US and Europe as a mind power expert. He's the author of many books and articles and was the subject of innumerable press, radio, and TV presentations in Europe. Very briefly about subliminal distant influentiality, SDI. It's an advanced mind control technology. It's non-physical, non-therapeutic, non-pharmaceutical, and I can't see the rest of that. How do I get rid of this? It's a painless intervention is what it says. It has been tested and validated for more than 30 years by medical professionals, universities, and labs, including global remote public experiments. It's used for health, anti-aging, anything you can think of, and in particularly, most potently, against terrorism. It is precise, efficient, laser-like, and certain. And quote, SDI is the most powerful technology in the world. That's a quote of mine. You will recognize all of this language. SDI is based on the fact that all living things are deeply embedded into a unified field of global consciousness, somewhat related to the most advanced concepts of quantum mechanics, inseparability and alocality, Jungian theory, collective unconscious, theories of morphogenic fields, Sheldrake, and psychofields, Kachnichet. The science has been extensively tested and applied, documenting that Dr. Savage is capable of doing, quote, impossible things from a distance anywhere in the world with unprecedented and precise results. Could call it remote doing. In his words, his unique ability to break into the psychocontinuum allows him to surf in it with excellent precision, reconfigure it remotely according to specific purposes authorized by his private clients. His quotes are, people actively exposed to my subliminal procedure are driven to do unconsciously things they otherwise would not do, and vice versa. not do things they otherwise would do. So that would mean not die of cancer if that's what you were about to do. He says whether you are 80 years old or whether you are 7 years old, you just need a complete transformation to break free from your own cultural prison. Well, I can do that upon people, but that I can teach others how to do that upon others. That's the next one is a report from a clinical neuropsychologist who used Dr. Savage's SDI on his patients, and he reports the recovery from brain cancer, coronary artery disease, and shingles. Obviously, this is highly controversial from a philosophical and ethical point of view. However, this is the kind of technology we've all been waiting for. So now I'm going to go into the theory, the structure, and the terms behind this. But is there any way I can move the right side of my screen?
Well, you can.
It's showing no, I made it worse. Oh, there, I got rid of it. Thank you,
Good.
David.
And I think if you could be summarizing this, Jane,
Yep,
rather than reading everything out, that would be.
I only have 2 minutes for each experiment.
Okay, right.
Okay, we're calling this transcendental science. And remember, his first pamphlet was Transcendental Medicine. And people are using that term transcendental in their writings, like Larry Dossey's book. So we're using that now. This is your post-materialist science. This structure is a bit new, but pretty much the same: mind, body, spirit. As we all know, mind is a debate team, can argue and win any side of a debate. The difference here is mind includes everything. The one collective biomind, Dr. Savage calls it psychocontinuum, and it includes multiple realities and dimensions, morphogenic fields, unified field of consciousness, all thought. And it can be accessed and utilized to bring about results in physical realities. The body, of course, you know, science knows all about it. But what these experiments are going to show you is that the mind is definitely not in the brain. Dr. Savage says the brain is a gland. Do you think with your foot? No, we don't. We think, and we don't think with our brain either. Spirit, we don't use, nor do we use God, although you'll see it in the writings. We're choosing transcendence because everybody understands a higher power. Higher power and transcendental forces. That should be written there. Higher power and transcendental forces always exist, do not change, and that's what has produced and controls the one collective mind, regardless of what it contains. And this is a very important point. It means it contains everything, the good, the bad, and the indifferent. Now, the principles of this science, you understand: non-separability of all life. The so-called paranormal is actually normal. Dr. Savage was raised with paranormal events happening every single day of his 24 years of life and training by his matriarchal clan. Science and spirituality are studying the same thing: nature, the physical and non-physical worlds we live in. And no one can separate the two, given the fact that one caused the other. Something did not come from nothing. A principle is all knowledge. Science, religious, is based on belief, specifically in 3 warrants. 1, an authority, Einstein, Jesus, religion. A sacred text, Einstein's theory, or the Christian Bible. 3, documentation and data, from experiment for science, experience for religion, none of which may be true. Truth requires objective, incontrovertible evidence, empiricism, Dr. Savage calls it, not belief based on theories, ideas, or thoughts. Now, the implications of this are many, and I'm giving an example on thoughts, because the other day, Dean Radin talked about, well, no one knows how thoughts get into the brain. What we're saying is thoughts are not from the brain, and they do not get into the brain. When Rupert Sheldrake talked on his 40th anniversary, he said, the idea of morphic resonance, quote, popped into my head. And if you remember Joseph Chilton Pearce's explanation of metanoia, the aha experience in Cracking the Cosmic Egg, we get an idea of how thoughts get to us. According to Yogananda, It depends on what the person needs or deserves. Dr. Savage confirms that this is exactly how we think. This is the key. Thoughts from the one collective biomind are given, downloaded, experienced by an individual body and brain to be responded to. Just as with morphic resonance, the species-specific set of memories and habits, a train of thoughts comes to us, and they keep coming and coming. And it's important because all life, which are part of the one collective biomind, receive this information, thoughts, with which to respond. And it's how they respond that is significant. And the other significant point is that the human species is the only species with free will and has the ability to choose to do the right thing or the wrong thing, as opposed to all other life, which is required to do what they were designed to do. So, a quote of Dr. Savage, an animal never chooses to sin. Okay, so as we know from human response to thoughts of injustice, vileness, and evil over millions of years, we clearly have not done what we're supposed to do on this earth. So that is part of our science and part of what Dr. Savage is all about, is responding as we are designed to do as human species to the thoughts, to what is coming from transcendence, to the one collective biomind, to our bodies and brains. Not going. Okay, hold on a minute. Okay, we get to the first experiment. There's 12 of them. I'm going to go briefly through all of them. They're all on the website, explained in detail. Here is the first part of the historic burn study. It took place at Alta Bates Hospital in Berkeley, California. You know, well, I called Larry Dossey at the time in 1998 and asked him, told him, this is the first experiment I'm doing. What do you suggest? He advised me to call Elizabeth Targ, which I did. Elizabeth was extremely happy to help. She was doing research on distant healing intentionality. And of course, we call it subliminal distant influence. It's the same thing. And I'm showing you this because many of you know how difficult it is to get Human Subjects Review Board permission to do a study like this. And it was excruciating. Poor Dr. Kaplan, who was the head of surgery and the burn center at Alta Bates Medical Center, was ridiculed for many months, but he had such prestige, so did Elizabeth Targ, that we did in fact receive Human Subjects Review Board permission. However, we ran into a roadblock in the design. To take care of burn victims, the hypothesis is that when Dr. Savage processes burn victims anywhere from a distance, within the first hours of the burn injury, you will see a dramatic re-epithelialization of the skin, impossible for third-degree burns. And that's what we were testing to see. Well, unfortunately, Dr. Kaplan, the burn center surgeon, doesn't see the burn victims in the first 4 hours, or even often in the first day. He only sees them when they come for their grafting. That was way beyond the protocol. And after a few months, or weeks, I guess, it was simply not working. While they were figuring it out, Dr. Targ and Dr. Kaplan were trying to figure out how to make this work. I was in San Diego, and I decided we have to do something else while we're waiting. So I called a client of Dr. Savage's, whose wife he helped from dying from cancer. He saved her from dying. And said he was well-known, wealthy, and connected. I said, do you know anybody in a burn center? He says, yes, I helped finance the Grossman Burn Center. So he called Dr. Grossman, who of course agreed and signed his son, Dr. Peter Grossman, and the pediatrician, Dr. Matt Young at the Grossman Burn Center to conduct this study. It was a 3-month study. And you'll see here, the hypothesis was the same, that they turned out to be children, but any burn victim would recover with dramatic healing of third-degree burns, which according to medical doctors was impossible. The results, that's the data, which you can read later or on the website. In all 5 cases in the treatment group, there was significant reepithelialization, healing of skin in areas diagnosed with deep and severe third-degree burns, compared to no reepithelialization of skin of third-degree burn in the children in the control group. They had to be grafted. In all 5 cases in the treatment group, the children not only survived their critical condition, but went home strong with healing skin, compared to the control group, in which, unfortunately, 2 children in critical condition died within 1 week of admission to the burn center. And the other 3 children who were not in critical condition eventually went home with normal grafting of third-degree burn areas. In all 5 cases in the treatment group, there was a subjectively noticeable and very unusual lack of infection, lack of pain and discomfort, vitalization of will, and maintenance of calm throughout each subject's stay at the burns clinic. Now, this was unheard of, so that's why we're calling it a historic burn study. I don't know if I don't have time to go through these details, but the case with the arrow there, the 3-year-old girl, 65% of the body, scalded burn. This child was expected to die. She didn't, and she arrived at the burn center calm. We had already processed her. I have this picture on the left here. This was a child we took care of 10 years later, but there's a photograph there that you can see for those who have never wanted to see anything like this. That's what happens to a child that is burned 65% of their body. And at the bottom, you see the results down here of the child's torso and legs healed of third-degree burns without grafting. And they healed in the same pigment, the same color. That's astounding. And it's incontrovertible. It's non-placebo and reproducible, which I'll show you in experiment 3. We've got 2,000 cases of burn victims we've taken care of 10 years later. Okay, the next experiment is on shingles. Same thing, if there's any change in the normal course of a person with an outbreak of shingles, then something very unusual has happened and medical science doesn't know what to do, and what we are presenting today is there is something to do. Dr. Savage, I called around asking doctors, please call if you have any patients with shingles. 4 cases came in. Only one of them we videotaped, so that's why you see the pictures there. But in all cases, people who had shingles we have to know about shingles in the first day of outbreak. And I'll explain that in the next one, why. So we had 4 cases. In all cases, the pain and the itching of shingles disappeared, went away within hours. By the next day, the scabs, the skin was healing. In one case, the woman said it was just falling off in front of my eyes in the shower. So that was, again, remarkable. In fact, all of these experiments are remarkable, so I'll stop saying that. Larry Dowsey was the advisor on this, and Dr. Jacobson was a witness to it. And we did this experiment at the Scripps Clinic in La Jolla. And Mary, poor Mary, you see her at the top picture. She'd been suffering pain and itching of shingles all day. And when she called, I asked her, could you please wait till this evening when we can gather some doctors so we can videotape it? She said, yes, she would. So she's pretty miserable. She's been crying all day. 5 minutes after a 5-minute distant processing by Dr. Savage, we were told to monitor and video what happened to Mary. That's Mary. And she's just shocked and ecstatic. And what she was saying there is, why doesn't it hurt? It doesn't hurt. So they asked her about the pain level. It had gone from a 9 or 10 down to, she said, maybe a 1. And then we watched the marks of the shingles start to disappear over the next half hour that we monitored. Now, the next one is very important. And 10 years later, this was 2009. Now, everyone in the world had a cell phone or access to a cell phone. So this enabled us to do a free global instant burn recovery program, which I organized and trained students of ours to take care of burns, because we could find out burn victims could call in from anywhere in the world within the first 30 minutes of burn. The first minutes, if it's fire burn, your face is on fire, call immediately, and then call 911. Anyway, these cases started to come in. And the key to the whole thing, which is most important for our research and our group today, is this intervention of Dr. Savage is called DSNB, distant subliminal neuro bypass. And that's the key. We have to process the burn victims within 30 minutes to bypass what the brain is going to do in reaction to the pain of a burn. Now, everyone knows how horrific the pain is from a burn, even if it's a minor burn, like the middle picture. Well, she didn't think it was minor. The baker didn't think it was minor, but it is. They're not going to die of a burn on their hand or their arm. It's going to recover eventually, but it hurts really bad. People call in crying with a pain level of 9 or 10 when all they've done is touch the hot pot or their leg on a motorcycle exhaust. It's horrible. The brain doesn't know that. The brain is reacting to the pain, and a pain level of 9 or 10 on a scale of 0 to 10 says to the brain, you're dying. So it sends overreaction. What we do is we bypass it. That's what he's doing. It's an intervention, and it's very important because it's not healing. He's intervening before there's anything to heal. That's what happened to the Richard on the right. He was on the way to the hospital. He didn't know his stepfather. He called his mother, and stepfather called us. And he didn't even know for 2 days that anybody took care of him. But by the time he got to the hospital, there was nothing to do. They sent him home. And that's the point, neuro bypass. So here's some real concrete evidence, 2,000 cases we have of nothing's happening in the brain. It's going to overreact automatically. Dr. Savage is surfing the one collective biomind, switching realities and downloading it to the person who needs help. And the person then is in another reality. So now we're talking multiple realities, multiple dimensions, unified field of consciousness, switching realities and bringing it to the physical. And remember, it's all coming from transcendence, higher power and transcendental forces. Okay, so this is just an example, as you read in the intro or the announcement. I've organized these in 5 sections. The first section is higher power, we just did. It's wrong, it's supposed to be section 2. This is beyond electromagnetism. This is extremely important for all of us. I just showed you here how it's set up on the website. These experiments are described in detail and explained in detail, which is even more important. So I show common design criteria. Then on the experiment, I show specific to that particular experiment. This is most important. Shielded room, Faraday cage. You all know about that. We're documenting transcendental forces that are accessible to Dr. Savage beyond electromagnetism to bring about dramatic results. Now, there's the shielded room on the left with the lab director, Dr. Chevalier, and Philip. I don't know who that other one is. This was a year before I met Dr. Savage. There's the machine, the diagnostic machine called AMI, apparatus for measuring internal organs, the energy output. And there's the subject. Okay, so the subject is to sit relax. And she's connected to the machine on her fingers and her toes. That's how that instrument works. And Dr. Savage is inside the shielded room. And the idea, obviously, is if anything has to do with electromagnetism of what he's doing, it will be blocked. The shielded room will block it. And if there's a significant reaction result, then his technology is not electromagnetic. So that's what the hypothesis was, to see what was going to happen. Well, yes, the results were documented on that AMI machine, and there was an output of, what does it say, 12% increase in the immune system, which was something very significant. But even better for us is it was videotaped. So there was a group of observers, doctors, researchers watching this. And what happened to this woman, Debbie, after 10 minutes, during the 10-minute processing, Debbie started to move around. And there's no other way to explain this video, which you can watch. I suggest you do, other than a 17-minute full body orgasm. That's what she went into. That's why she's smiling like this on the last picture and just remarking, I feel like a vibration of love and more. That is what happens when people are processed by Philip. Not always these same results, but they do feel like a vibration of love and more. Philip says, my people just glow. That's extremely significant to us because his processing is clearly not limited by electromagnetism. It's beyond. That's very important for us, which means everything's happening in that one collective bio-mind and downloaded to the physical. These are two more examples, and I'm going to have to hurry. Two more examples of beyond electromagnetism. One is a child diagnosed in the womb with cystic fibrosis. Both parents carried it, and they were scientists. This is in Paris, France. They asked Philip to, he was very, very well known. He was a media celebrity at that time, and they asked him to help. So he processed the family and the baby, and the baby was born. As she said, my baby was born in good health. It was all over the news and the TV. Those are two TV screenshots. There's the mother with the baby, perfectly healthy. And there's Dr. Savage in a debate. The host, TV host, wanted to have a debate with Dr. Savage and a prestigious medical doctor, Meyer. And then she wanted to have a poll from the public. Oh, who won the poll? Well, Dr. Savage explained what he was doing, which is very interesting to hear. There's key points in there because one of the things he says there, he quotes the father of modern surgery saying, I just do the first cares. It's God who heals. He quoted that. That's transcendence. That's what Philip's talking about and doing. So, of course, the healer won the debate, 83% and 17% for Dr. Meyer. Of course, there was respect from both of them. They knew each other very well. The next one is, again, yes, beyond electromagnetism, but it's also very clear here. It's a breakthrough in mind-brain research because it's completely bypassing the brain. The child was born without a corpus callosum, the part of the brain that integrates the left and right hemispheres. So this child couldn't move. The brain was not functioning. After Dr. Savage was asked by an osteopath who was taking care of this child in Los Angeles to help, after a few weeks of working with Dr. Savage, that's him, that's Dr. Savage processing Carlos in the lower right, this child started to move, started to sit up, started to feed himself, started to interact, laugh, play with the puppy, things that are impossible to do without a corpus callosum. So the result here documents you don't need a corpus callosum. You need the one collective bio-mind sending the right new reality, multiple reality, surfing it, shifting, and downloading it. Those are the keys. When the documentary filmmaker saw these results, he asked Philip, what'd you do, Philip? Did you help regenerate a corpus callosum? No, we bypassed it. You're going to hear bypass a lot. That's what he's doing. The next section is on genuine healing, and everyone knows all about healing. Millions of books have been written. So these three experiments are showing you a difference between the healing we have learned about for all 50 years and genuine healing. And there's a significant difference. Now here, for anyone who's interested, can read this slide later or on the website. I just put the information there in summary form of what this AMI machine is. But what it's doing is measuring the energy output in the internal organs. So you see in the middle there, the fingers are the lung and the heart, the toes are the kidney and the spleen and all of that. There was two really important points here. One is a healing. Gary collapsed at work, kidney failure. And if you see that first arrow on the left, it's pointing to the energy output at the kidneys. And you can see the circle, the inner circle is supposed to be, complete, a whole and in perfect balance. Well, it is, except for the kidneys. It's like a piece of pie cut out of the circle. And that indicated, it's a diagnostic machine, so it indicates there's a serious problem here. After a treatment by Dr. Savage, you can see the two arrows that not only did the energy burst into the kidneys, you can see on the after picture on the right, that's the kidneys, but look at the after picture on the left. It burst to all the organs in the body, so much so it hit the end of the chart. Had that chart, that outer circle been bigger, there'd have been even more energy recorded. Very significant. And as Dr. Jacobson remarks 2 years later, this man had a complete transformation. Depression gone, suicidal tendencies. He had a whole new lease on life. That is actually what happens to most, well, everyone who is helped by Dr. Savage. But for us, it's showing there's major healing going on here. And as Philip says, he's not a healer. He's intervening in a crisis. Remember, surfing, switching, and downloading. Now, here's the most important part that has been actually overlooked for 24 years that I've been working with Philip. I didn't get it. Nobody's gotten it. Nobody mentioned it. If you look at Philip's charts before, it's that little circle in the middle shows the balance of Philip's energy, which is inward, calm, and that's probably his normal state. But look at it after. 1 minute later, bursts of energy to where Dr. Jacobson again reviewed this and said it's 38% increase. So the question is, well, that's great. Everybody thought that was very interesting. But where did the energy come from? And that's what I want to leave you with. Where did the energy come from? It wasn't there a minute before. And that's what I realized in putting all these experiments together in a way that people could comprehend them. So I asked Philip, where did you get the energy? He says, oh, I dipped into the transcendental tank. I'm just going to leave you with that. Transcendental tank, higher power. Laboratory tests of Philip's brain while processing. The key here is the EEG test showed a dramatic difference in the delta component, the delta frequency. And delta is a normal component of sleep. That's why it's in red there. That's the result. And Philip was not asleep. He was processing. And when he's doing these tests, he's actually processing a real person, a subject, or somebody who needs his help. So the point is, he's not in his brain when he's processing. And this is why I say it's conclusive proof that the brain is, the consciousness isn't in the brain. None of this is in the brain. Brain is a gland. The one on the right is also extremely important because the brain mapping at the alpha band increased 30 to 40 times, not percent, 30 to 40 times over the right frontal cortex in a matter of minutes. And the neuroscientists that did this test said this is unprecedented. He also said that they've seen brain mapping results like this on large sea mammals, whales, dolphins with their sonar, never in a human brain, never in a human brain. So once again, that's the punchline of this experiment. Philip's brain isn't normal human. Now he says that in a lot of his writings. His brain doesn't work the same way as humans. But what is it? Who is he? What does it mean? We're not answering that right now. You can read the website. It explains a lot. The point is, he's not human. And people who meet him do know that, but they don't know much more than that. So we're saying he's a transdimensional being surfing the biocontinuum. And really important, so I don't know if I'll have time to remember this later, is that human beings were designed, primordial human beings were designed to have these abilities. And we have kind of lost access to them. Not kind of, we have lost access to them. And that's why he's here, to help us reconnect to that and awaken that. Okay, so that's the lab test. Now this one, we have hundreds of documented cases. So I'm just pulling out the most controversial, healed of AIDS, lab core results. This man had AIDS for 10 years. The viral load was 36 copies, something like that. And after one visit to Philip, processing, it dropped to less than 50. And those are lab core reports. Those aren't anecdotes. Those aren't, oh, I know somebody who can heal AIDS. These are lab core reports. This was very dramatic. And of course, everyone said it's impossible. Any AIDS group will tell you that's not possible. Okay, now remember, he was very famous in France. There's the transcendental medicine that was introduced him to the America. That on the left is the TV show that broke all the records of TV ratings. 25% of the French people watched that show. And he was called Guez. He's called Guez because his name is Philippe Sauvage, which means wild. In America, he's Philip Savage. In Brittany, he's Philip Guez. So the TV knew him as Mr. Guez. And there's some of the articles. David could read them. I can't, except I know what they are. Animal healer. He contributes the funds that he gets to nonprofits, and he comes from the matriarchal lineage. That's the lower right. And that's an article that was in the Journal of Medicine. No one but a doctor, a medical doctor, ever got an article in the Journal of Medicine in France. He worked with doctors all the time. Okay, so now I'm hurrying along. There are hundreds of these cases. All the results are dramatic, incontrovertible, not always non-placebo, because that means you need an animal or a child. So these are people that were helped by Philip. Key to genuine healing, I put it on so you could read it later. It's extremely important because this is the difference between genuine healing and all the healing we know. Geosomatics, what we do to the earth is coming back to us. We're going to suffer the symptoms in our bodies. We give the earth cancer, overpopulated, toxic people. We're going to suffer what our Mother Earth has, cancer. That's the point of geosomatics, in too simplified, but it's incredible reversal of what we think. The idea then is the only way man heals himself is first to heal the earth. And Larry Dossey talked about that in The One Mind, so I'm sure you all know that. However, here's the point of key to genuine healing, and that's what Philip says. I have the key, I can pass it to you. To the ancient Celts and all other Aboriginal cultures on such a matter, a proven sense of sacrifice and free will are the two components of a common higher concept. So you're talking about sacrifice. Think of any anthropology studies on medicine men. They sacrifice themselves and they do it willingly. So there's a whole lot on the website about this. It is so interesting. It's dominated my life for 24 years. Now I kind of understand it enough to explain some of this to you. Here's my favorite. I have 1 minute. Paddy the horse was crippled for 3 years, standing in the mud. No one did anything to help him. He's 19 years old, student of Philip's, couldn't stand it anymore. She raised some money, asked him to help. He did. We set up a distant processing for Paddy the horse. And I said, I want to see it. I'm not coming to Cornwall. I was in Switzerland in our office. Please videotape it. So they videotaped Paddy before, and it was heartbreaking because it was impossible to make him move. He got him into a little trot. He trotted right back to the tree to scratch his sweet itch. He was miserable. Then I said, okay, you got that before, so we'll set the appointment, 5-minute processing. The camera's ready, the witnesses are ready, and Patty runs away. The cameraman can't catch him. The first minutes of footage are the camera videoing the ground. Finally, he caught up with the horses that's coming around the bush, down the hill. Patty is chasing Dolly, a 1-year-old filly, and comes back up the hill, running, and stops dead in his tracks, catching his breath. Patty was out of shape. He caught his breath and then caught up with Dolly. I told them we need to follow up. We need 2 weeks later, then 4 weeks and 6 weeks. So you see a couple weeks later, and then you see 4 or 6 weeks later, a 170-pound man is riding Patty. That's impossible. An animal, no placebo. He's hacking the biomatrix, the biomine, to reset the animal's brain. That's what he calls it, a brain reset. This I don't have time to explain. It's anti-aging. You can just look. There's Linda, 50. And there's Linda 2 hours after meeting Philip. We were on our way to a very important conference. Nobody knew he was going to do this. She walked out of his office looking like that, the after picture on the left. It's totally unbelievable. And everyone was shocked. Couldn't believe it. And that's what maintained. And you see the later picture. It's a little more professional. But that one on the left is exactly what she looked like coming out of that office. That's anti-aging, cellular anagenesis, reversing the biological clock. You can see Allison was only 39 in that passport photo. That's Allison a few months later, a totally different looking person. And inner also. You can see the inner healing that took place. Okay, and then old Shishi, it turns out these are the pandas in the zoo. They are very famous, historic power panda couple. They have produced the most offspring and grand offspring baby pandas in the 20 years after Philip processed old Shishi and the mama panda. It turns out Shishi, when China sent these pandas over, Shishi was 20 years older than they thought. So he wasn't at all interested in mating. Philip had to process the situation and the baby showed up. Then they replaced old Shishi with Gao Gao, and Gao Gao was ready to go. And he did. And these two became the power couple of pandas in the world. Of course, you can Google it. And if you're in San Diego ever, you know about this. Here's the, experiment 12, good. Here's the point, and we'll get to it in the target actions. Instead of people, instead of animals, which is very complex, even though we do it, we still do it 10 years later, taking care of burn victims every single day. Yesterday, we took care of a little baby, a 2-year-old, burned himself, and within an hour, pain's gone, burns disappeared, child's asleep, and child wakes up and is playing. This is what we need to do. I'll talk more on action and target action 3. We need to save burn cells. In any lab, anywhere in the world, you all may have contacts to labs. Scientists can do this easily. Burn the cells with laser in the nucleus. The cells Philip processes won't die. They won't burn. The cells he doesn't process will burn and die. There's our incontrovertible proof. Easy, inexpensive, anywhere in the world, reproducible millions of times if necessary, but certainly thousands of times. And that's what we want to do. That's a press release about our film, which we won an award, 2 awards, one in Cannes, one in Sochi, Russia, for Rush is the name of the film. And the first half is about burns, which is incredible, of course, interviewing burn victims, but then the second half is everything else Philip does, broken neck, drug addict, and the horse and others. So that's a great film called Rush. It's on the website. I have a few minutes left. Yes, good. Talk about the action items, the action targets. This is the most important one. The second one will go with this one. This is Project Imago, what we need to do. The humanity's long overdue quantum evolutionary leap. Philip explained that to me 25 years ago. in where I knew nothing about any of this. He said, it's like humanity's on level 3, but it was supposed to have evolved to like level 9. We were designed to be the beings that you all dream about and somehow know we were, but we didn't evolve the way we were supposed to. In fact, his paleontology dissertation documents how we have devolved. The human race has devolving, and for many reasons, which he writes about in his latest, or one of his most important books, called The Warship. He documents this. I mean, he doesn't document it, he explains it. He documented it in a 900-page thesis in paleontology. So the point is, we need a leap from level 3 or whatever to level 9 in order to be able to live on this planet and do what we're supposed to do on this planet, which is to serve and protect. Sorry about that noise. Serve and protect rather than destroy, as we are doing so much of. Okay, the second action item, which I'll show you, is about an institute that would go with this. So it's a dual project. With the funding for Project Imago, we will also have an institute. So, and then the third action item is what we can do immediately while we are waiting for a breakthrough with an evolutionary leap for humanity. Now, the point is, he says, there's a leap that's long overdue. That's my project, to turn everyone from its larval state. We're like at a lower larval state, okay? We're at a caterpillar instead of the butterfly. This is a metamorphosis machine he needs to build. What it takes is, as for me, I have the machinery for change, is to build a few machines, very special pyramids, everybody likes pyramids, with 9 angles, 2/3 on the outside, 1/3 on the inside, and then a sphere in a very strange alloy with a special bioliquid inside, and that's the key. The sphere with the bioliquid inside, with a different alloy that we don't really have on this planet. Then I would be connected to those people with thermal imagery and submit them to me on my own processing with my strange powers. What I can guarantee is that people entering the sphere and people going out of the sphere less than an hour later will be the same species. They'll be real humans, complete. And even more, he can say it here, this is his interview, they will be fully evolved, and that's the key. Not only complete humans, which we all dream, we know is possible, but fully evolved, which, and this is the point, has never happened before. So we need this, and we need this urgently, because he's been ready to do this for 40 years. And the last 15, since he wrote all this, or maybe more, we've been working very, very hard to produce this. People weren't ready. The crisis wasn't critical enough, urgent enough. It now is. So we need to get this done in the time that we have left, which may not be so much time left. I'm going over to point 2 over here. Transmutational pyramids are special biocybernetic metamorphosis machines. On leaving the sphere 1 hour later, those same people will be complete humans, transformed from their larval state to a new level of human evolution with the highest consciousness, access to the highest consciousness, abilities, powers, and skills. The people come out of the sphere will be totally different, and that's the point. Able to do more than any human has ever done before, and can be witnessed to do more than any human ever before. The first Imago being will dramatically change the world, raise consciousness, and catalyze major and immediate positive societal and environmental change. And Imagos will be fully equipped to do whatever is necessary to save the earth, ensure the survival of the future human race. What it means to us is we will be in a different world, a different paradigm, and we will have the evidence for it. And that's why action target 2 is very important. We need our own institute. We need our own labs, as he said, because when the scientific corpus, reductionist science, etc., is going to understand the threat to their own paradigm that's going to be washed away, we better have our own laboratories to establish our own proofs. That's what people need. Once again, proofs, 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 empiricism, not new messages. Now, I showed you 12 experiments that are proofs, that are groundbreaking that we can use in any of your research, our research, however it fits with what you're doing with your careers and your life. But it's proof that we need. This is the proof we need in order to survive on this planet, actually. That's the point here. So I'm almost out of time to present, so you can read this later. Oh, I want to point out one of the greatest parts of Sapiential Bioinstitute. Sapience is wisdom in science. It's higher than science. And he's always dreamed, he wrote this probably 30 years ago, to unite the best scientific pioneers of biology, physics, and medicine, which you know these people, with the last native shamans who have managed somehow to survive the civilizational Holocaust after processing with his wisdom and his abilities, to merge them, to bring them together, not only in the Institute, which will be extremely wonderful, but to merge their wisdom, their knowledge into the future human race. We want that, we need that. Okay, now the third one, and this is the most important part of this talk today, because we do this already, and we can do this. We can do this all over the world. And this is what is necessary to crack the reductionist paradigm. I know we all want to do that. We've been trying to do that for 50 years. We haven't done it. So this is the way to do it. We can do it within weeks, depending on who wants to help and what labs are out there. And it's not just doing the lab tests on cells, it's having it documented by the media. That is always our problem, as you know. You heard Rupert Sheldrake the other day. He's no stranger to controversy and being blocked. Okay, we need the media. When we have results that force the media to pay attention, if there's so many cases, thousands of cases of cells burned that don't die, that's what Philip's talking about. For the old paradigm to break free from its immense conceptual inertia, the new paradigmatic primer must be of extreme potency and of maximum simplicity both. The experimental results have to be of such an absolute clarity. Cell didn't die and it's burned, and thousands of it, that even the most die-hard supporters of the former reductionist models will be made incapable of conceiving any possible semantic argument to deny or circumvent the scientific and logical consequences of what they are seeing right in front of them. And that's why we need the dramatic proof, we need the media covering it. And Why Fire is a wonderful article. He explains it in detail because it puts into question the very nature of fire, that it doesn't exist. And it's showing it didn't burn. So the need to reassess so dramatically the very nature of a basic physical element that nobody has ever really thought to question will initiate the paradigmatic primer that will usher us into a new scientific era. That's why we say this is the only way to crack the reductionist paradigm. And right now, it's the only way we can do it quickly. And we need to do it quickly, as we are all been doing this a long time. That's our final access to the key, higher power, the way, that's our contact details, PS proof, my phone number, and email. So thank you very much for your attention. And I hope you look at this on the website, and any time you have questions, you can contact me any time, anyhow. So now I guess we can take questions, David.
Yes, thank you very much indeed, Jane. and could you stop screen share? That's great.
Try. How do I do that?
You just
do it?
No, go to the top and you'll see a red button. Which
Hold on. Oh, stop share.
Share, yep. Yeah, there we go.
Yay.
Excellent.
Hello, everybody.
Yes, okay. Well, that was what you might call a whistle-stop tour.
Yeah.
Of some extremely interesting material, and so we welcome people to put their hands up and ask some questions. And I'm just going to take a couple of items out of the chat. One is the has some of this been written up in peer-reviewed papers?
Ask Rupert Sheldrake. Absolutely not.
No.
Who would peer review this? Who would fund this? Who would do anything but criticize, slander, and go after us? We've had much of that. So no.
So what you're talking about in that case is single case studies aggregated, which show effects that are impossible. I mean, I think that's your.
Well, that's one way of saying it. Yes, they're not single case. We have 2,000 cases of burns publicly. That's why we did that. No. The most heartbreaking part of this happened the first year in the first study in a historic burns study in the Grossman Burn Center. I knew those doctors. I met them. They weren't interested. In fact, they were opposed. In fact, they told Dr. Matt Young that if he reported this, if he wrote this up and sent it to the journals and talked about it at the conference, Matt Young would be out of a job. He's a pediatrician. He just lost his private practice when he got divorced. He couldn't lose his job. That was the end of that. They're not interested, nor are the fire departments. Every student, every person who's ever contacted us tells me, Jane, I know the fire chief. I know this. I'm going to get it. They went all over England. They went all over the US looking for fire departments. They're not interested. You know where they get their funding? They get their funding from the burn centers. Burn centers make a fortune off of burns, which you would think they would care, and they don't. Now, that's one of the reasons we chose burns and shingles. It's an area that isn't so threatening to the medical profession. When we talk about cancer and AIDS, look out. The BBC slandered us brutally, viciously, went to the Grossman Burn Center and interviewed the Grossmans, not Dr. Young, not me, not any of they didn't ask for the records. How would I know the names of these children? How would I know the data? There's no way I would know the data if they hadn't given it to me. They denied the whole thing. That's stopped us that's tried to shut us down for 15 years. Didn't shut us down, but it certainly crippled us. Rupert Sheldrake explained all that the other day.
Yes, thank you. And one of the other questions was, has a prototype pyramid been designed, or is that still in the pipeline?
It's not in the pipeline. It's in the one collective biomine ready to download.
Okay.
It just needs funding. And it needs a lot of funding. And we're not raising funds. We can't raise funds. We can't get funding. It's also a violation of his protocol. He cannot do that. Very important to understand, with all this power and all this higher access to higher power, transcendental force, Phil can do nothing. He's not allowed to, because we're human. We have free will. He is not allowed to interfere in anybody's free will without their permission and a justification. Why should he take care of this person rather than a child over here? He has to have a reason. And so it's only through that protocol that he can do anything. That's why he can't be on a webinar. He only can meet people who ask him for his help and prove their sincere sense of sacrifice and reciprocity. Then he can give them everything.
Okay. Who would like to ask a question? I can't see any hands going up at the moment. You must have lots of questions. Just you need to go to reactions and then put your hand up. Well, there's been quite a few questions coming up in the thing. So we got Charlie Fox. Charlie, you can unmute yourself.
Thanks. And you can ignore what I put in the chat then. I'll ask it here directly.
Okay.
This reminds me a lot of the case of Franz Mesmer, who had this energy that he flowed through him and he manipulated to help people and cure them. Is this something only Philip can do, or can he teach others to do it?
Well, first of all, really important question. That is exactly what people tend to think of as healing, moving energy around. That is not what he's doing. Remember, he's not healing. He's not a healer. He keeps saying that everywhere. I'm not a healer. I make healers out of people. How does he make healers out of people? Because we have self-healing abilities. We have self-regenerating abilities. And primordial humans were designed with incredible powers and abilities and duties on the planet. We're especially equipped to protect the planet. So self-healing is what it's all about. What we have learned, what we know about healing is making somebody feel better. Yeah, there's many ways of making somebody feel better and moving energy around. That's not what he's doing. That's like a Band-Aid. What he's doing is getting to the cause of the problem, which is in the one collective biomind. It's in the psychocontinuum. So he shifts it so it's not a problem. That's what he's doing. He's intervening in a crisis, childbirth, corpus callosum, cystic fibrosis. He's intervening, shifting to another reality that's going to change the reality for the subject in the physical world.
Okay,
So it's very different than what we know as healing.
But people like Sergi Cahill King, who this sounds very much like, he's a shaman. He says that he can teach others to do this. Can Philip teach others?
Oh, I'm sorry. I knew there was a second part to your question. Absolutely. He said that in the beginning. Not he can do this to people, but even better, he can teach others to do it to themselves and to others. Well, I've worked with him 24 years. I can tell you for certain, yes, he teaches others to do it.
Okay.
And our students take care of the burn victims.
Thank you. We've got Patricia and then Hugh. So,
yes, hello, good evening.
Hello.
I would like whether you have experienced healing or changing people suffering from spinal muscular atrophy, a deep genetic problem.
You have to realize I'm a sociologist. I know very little about medicine, medical, or even what you just said. I'm a sociologist interested in social change and power. This is about power. So if we asked Philip and used that diagnosis, he would say, yeah, he did it in France. He did it. I've been working with him for 24 years. So if you mention something I've seen, then I can say yes. And everything that I've mentioned in this talk, any diagnosis, cancer, I have seen. So I know, but I don't know that one. Okay. But the answer would be yes.
Thanks
I just don't have an example of it. The other thing I wanted to say is the reason Philip can make people self-healers and teach it to others is because we are designed that way. We're created that way. We're supposed to be able to do that. And he's here at this moment in history to give us a hand, help us do it for those who want to. And it has to be a free will decision on the human's part. Otherwise, he would be interfering, which is just like the other side. And my talk did include extinction and evil. So I want to make the point very quickly that maybe you've already picked up. The collective biomind includes everything that humans have ever thought, done, said. It's all there. There's a lot of not good in there, okay? That's what we're calling evil. And extinction is connected to that because we are destroying our planet. And I just want to read one thing that you're all acquainted with and admire, and we respect, Dr. Larry Dossi. And I want to just read this because this is the connection between extinction, evil, and the one mind. In the one mind, he said, I have intended this book to be a way out of hell. The hell of this particular moment in history where we confront threats to our existence that our forebears never imagined. An earth that is being degraded by the sheer fact of our existence and short-sighted choices, free will. It is a hell from which, beyond a certain point, experts say, there may be no escape and perhaps no atonement. Very important in Philip's methodology, atonement. Only through willful blindness can one not be aware of the challenges we face. Global climate change, polluted air and water, exploding populations, habitat and species loss, water scarcity, desertification, murderous ideologies, resource depletion, grinding poverty, endless wars of choice, ethnic and religious hatred, on and on. And I've got mine, every man for himself philosophy that currently infects our society. The evidence for our global predicament is based on abundant science. That is our response to the thoughts that come to us that have to do with evil, injustice, vileness. Our reaction has been that list that Larry Dossey gave us. It's the best succinct paragraph I've ever read. That's evil. And why are we going extinct? Earth's going to die. One at our hands. She has to defend herself. That's the point.
Thank you. Hugh, and then Peter Fennick. So Hugh, over to you.
Thank you. Jane, I'm glad you mentioned Dr. Larry Dossey, because I was actually going to ask that question. Basically, does the primordial unified healing field relate to his early experiments, which are documented as random controlled trials on the effects, beneficial effects of prayer on cardiac disease? Is it part of the same paradigm you're relating these 12 experiments to?
Relating the 12 experiments to what?
The primordial indigenous inherent healing field, unified healing field that we all are part of.
That's where it's all happening. It's all happening. And that is the key point here. This is how we can prove, document incontrovertibly that mind is not in the brain. And the one thing about what Larry Dossey's book, Individual Mind, it is, we don't have an individual mind. We are always all connected to that one collective bio-mind, all life. It's a projection that we then identify with our so-called individual bodies and mind. It's a projection. It's actually all part of the one collective mind. So that is the paradigm. And the paradigm for primordial humans was we were high, holy beings. Let's just put it that way. And we still are. It's just, as he says in his interview, there's one exclusive interview of Philip on the website, and it's worth watching, about an hour. He says, these abilities, telecommunication, teleportation, anything you can imagine, we were able to do as primordial human beings. He says those abilities are still in us. They're like frozen, but they're there. That's why he, when he's asked, can awaken them and give a person back. You saw the woman with a 17-minute orgasm. She was a transformed woman. She was awakened and had access to her own self-healing ability. She sold her car. I heard from the doctor, her doctor. She sold her car and everything she could and bought a round-the-world ticket and left. She disappeared.
Yeah,
That's what happens.
I think that we are really beginning to recover this sense of the one mind, and a lot of people have been talking about it. It's part of to do with the Galileo Commission, primacy of consciousness, and just I was talking to Federico Fagin earlier on, and he takes this view as well. So I think it's kind of, if you have conversations I've had recently with Apila Colorado, an indigenous elder. She says these capacities that we have are still there. They're just dormant.
That's what he says.
And I think that's true.
And the shaman that you mentioned, there are shaman in this world hidden away. Generally, Philip knows them. He met them in Greenland. They invited him to his cave, and they spoke the same language, which they all cried when they spoke the same language. They understood each other. They have held on, they have kept some of these powers. They're out there. There's the ones we want for the Imago Project and the Sapiential Bioinstitute.
Thank you. Peter, you have a question.
Hi, Peter.
I'm just trying to ask, can you unmute? I've asked you to unmute. You should be able to unmute.
Jane, very nice to see you again.
Nice to see you, Peter.
Long time.
Yes.
I was just going to ask you some questions. Do you remember you were telling us a little while ago that Philip can train people, train students to do it? When I knew Philip, he had a number of people who were being trained by him. Did any of those develop in any parts? Because I never heard about it after that.
Shortly after you met Philip and I met you, Peter, and David, that wonderful castle meeting, which seems like yesterday, the BBC did their slander article on us. And they took a 10-minute video about this great healer in Southwest Cornwall, and they turned it into a slander show at the behest of a father of our drug addict, who was very upset that the drug addict recovered and was going to talk about his early childhood. So he got his friends at the BBC to do this 1-hour slander show. That was all over in BBC, and then they put a summary article of it on their website, which is still there, slandering us. So you haven't heard about anything since you met Philip after 2006, actually 2005, because of that. They tried to destroy us, and they did a good job. Now, the people that you may have met or heard about, yeah, they're the Fireburn Doctor team. They've gone on to do all kinds of things and get jobs they never would have gotten, and they support this work. And one of the students, I don't know if you remember Rosie. Rosie was a student who came to Philip asking, please, can I be animal healer? She was very messed up. What did she have? I forget what she had, but it all went away. She was a whole different woman, self-confidence, happy. She had. And he said, yes, you've earned that. You deserve that. He made her an animal healer. She went back to Cornwall and took care of some dogs and horses in the neighborhood. And people were like, Rosie, how can you do this? How can you do this? Just thrilled her to death.
Last question from Chris. And so I'll ask you to unmute. There you go. I think you're on, Chris.
Hear me?
Yeah, I can hear you.
Oh, thank you. Yeah, just a quick question. These experiments, have any of them been like scaled down for like a classroom size experiments? You know, oh dear.
Sorry, that was Tamara unmuted. There's some
no, it's no problem.
Radio going on.
I've been following experiments from Dean Radin also since 2016, but was wondering if anyone had attempted to scale down these experiments so as they could be possibly taught in a classroom, like alongside the double slit experiment, you know?
What do you mean scaled down?
An example would be Dean Radin's 2006 experiment, the meditation experiment, which he done. Yeah, maybe to make a bite size.
Yes, I see.
Create some awareness about it. You know, this is incredible.
Yes, exactly.
Work.
Yes, exactly. And that is the whole point. Please review slide 3, experiment 3. And on our website, there's another website, fireburndoctor.com. Very important. I should have put it on contact. Fireburndoctor.com has the reports of burn victims and shingles victims around the world from 58 different countries of the results. Instant burn recovery, instant shingles recovery is what we call it. That is scaled down. Anybody can call in with a burn. Anybody can do it from their home, from their lab, from a classroom. But what we really want is the cells. And that is a scaled down. We can teach people to, oh, that's the other thing. When the media picks this up, they'll be interested. We can train everybody in the world, teams all over the world. That's all free, by the way. Those experiments are free, and the global burn experiment is free, so we can train everybody. That's how we would scale that down.
Yeah, well, it also needs scaling up.
What does that mean? More people know?
Yeah, if anybody thinks they can help or they're interested in following up these experiments, you've got Jane's email there, and we'll put all this information into the recording email.
Thank you.
And I just got one, and the slides as well. I've just got one question to ask you, which is about geosomatics, because I thought that idea was extremely interesting. And obviously, Vandana Shiva will be talking about this on the 12th of June, regenerating soil, regenerating health.
Yes.
Because it seems to me that Sir Albert Howard said, in the 1940s, that the soil, the health of the soil, the plant, the animal, and the human is one health. Why we call one mind, one health, one planet, one health.
That's right.
And so we need a regenerative process, both in ourselves and applied to nature. And I love the idea that by helping nature heal and regenerate, we're actually doing this to ourselves, because we're all part of that same mind. And it also occurred to me, with one of my other hats on, which is the sort of Peter Dunoff hat, that something like paneurythmy is a form of healing, as it were, applied to the earth. And I'm thinking of one particular movement, which is a swaying movement like this, which is called Joy of the Earth. And so it's something that you tune into the earth while you're doing this movement. And the whole thing is harmonizing. And I think that's a lot of what we need to do, is to harmonize between ourselves, to harmonize with the earth, and then to harmonize with the higher power.
Yes, well, that is the most important point of my talk and Philip's work, is saving the earth. And geosomatics is a loop. It's a cybernetic loop. The problem is that the earth is quite capable of taking care of herself. What she's not able to do is deal with 7 billion humans. It was never supposed to be this way. Humans have gone berserk with their reproduction. So the earth is in crisis for her own life. That is why I read Larry Dossey's paragraph to you. She's dying. So the humanity is the problem, and the only solution is to wake up and become a higher species. That's why the Imago Project is our only way out at this point. Earth then replenishes itself. She can do that, but she needs a human species that is of a higher consciousness, higher evolution, and able to maintain their job on the planet.
Good. Okay, well, thanks so much, Jane, for what has been a whistle-stop tour of Philip's work, covering very many aspects. And I'm sure there are still lots of questions out there, but I think it requires considerable courage to stand out there and make these points and keep on with the experiments with hostile or indifferent reactions from people. And really, I think now is the time for us to step up to the mark in all sorts of different ways. And thank you for encouraging us to do that. So thank you very much, everybody, for coming. A very good evening or the rest of the day to everybody. Jane, thank you so much. And we'll see you all soon.